I just completed watching on public television a story called Goodbye, Mr. Chips. At the end of the story, Mr. Chips, who was a teacher, had retired but had not quit teaching. He had continued teaching until he was an older man, and then the story followed him right up through the time that he died. And when he was almost at the end of his life, someone said to him, "It's too bad you didn't have children," because his wife had passed away at this point and he was alone in the world. But his response was, "But I do have children. I have thousands of them. They were the boys that I taught in the school all through the years. These were my children as much as if they had been my own biological children. And I've loved them like my children, and I've thought of them as my children, and I feel like they are all mine." And I have thought a lot about what Mr. Chips was like. Well, I could see a lot of correlation in his life with mine. I'm not alone on this, because I'm sure that every teacher in the world that ever read or heard Goodbye, Mr. Chips has feelings like this, especially if you've taught a long time. But I think probably the most beautiful person in the world is an 18-year-old young person who is in his senior year of high school. They are still looking for guidance because they are still young people. They haven't gone out into the world yet. They still have the nice security of school, of high school teachers, of the parents, and of their homes. When they go out into the world, they grow up real fast. Most of them find great happiness. Several of them find tremendous success. Some of them find sadness, and they find it harder to reach their success. Most of them go out, and when I see them again, they're living a good life. And then I'm always very happy for them, and I'm very proud that they were once upon a time with me for the 3 years that they spend in high school. I have an uncle named Fay Smith who died last year. When I started teaching school in 1957, Fay had been a coach for many years. And Fay was proud that I was going to be a school teacher. And he told me so. And he said, here I was going to be a music teacher, which meant that I was going to be working with kids in extracurricular activities, as he had done in coaching athletic sports. And he said, I will bet you that after you've taught for a few years and you get to be a little older than those kids, that you will acquire the nickname of Smitty. And I said, no way, because my college teachers had informed me, as they had my whole class, that we are to never allow students to give us a nickname, because when the students do that, they immediately lose respect for us and they think of us as a buddy. And the last thing in the world in 1957 that our college teachers thought we should do is be buddies with our students. So don't let nicknames enter the picture, they told us. And I told Fay this, and Fay said, we'll see. It took until the early 1970s for me to become Smitty. One girl, this very beautiful young lady, one time was saying to me, why do we have to always keep calling you Mr. Smith, and are we going to call you this after we graduate? It's going to be very difficult to call you Mr. Smith when we're all 30 years old. And I said, you will call me Jerry after you graduate. And they said, oh no. No. They said they can't do that. They said, we would never call you by your first name. It's not respectful. And they said, can we call you Smitty? And I said, well, if you want to. I said, I suppose you can. That seems kind of odd, but why not? So immediately, the group of Southtown singers and chorus kids all started calling me that, and that was about 1972, I would guess, or maybe 1971, whatever. And at any rate, ever since then, which is almost 20 years ago, I have been known as Smitty. Every student that I have inquired in high school has called me Smitty. Elementary students have called me that. My own grandchildren call me that on occasion. Like Mr. Chips, somewhere along the line, I took on the nickname of Smitty. I love it. I am oh so glad that there's a name that they can call me with respect and also as a friend. And they do continue calling me that when they're 30 years old. And they call me that when they're 15 years old. So it worked out very well. I'm very grateful to Faye because he told me it would happen, and he was a Smitty, and so am I. I respect him for this. Lenore Hansen, the most unique person I have ever known in my life. Lenore Hansen taught special education in the Rochester School District. She was teaching special education at Mayo High School when I started teaching there in 1967. She handled her children with love. She handled her students, I'm talking about now, with love. I learned a lot, more than she ever knows, about how to teach school by just watching her and how she did handle kids. She made me realize that you can hug kids and that you can give them all kinds of TLC, and made me realize that I can loosen up around students. She's responsible in many ways for the relationships that I have with a lot of the kids that I talk about. She handled her students that way, and I watched it and I liked it, and I was doing much of the same as the time went along. So I know that a lot of my teaching expertise, as such as it may be, at least I shouldn't use that word, I should use the word teaching habits, and some of just the general ways that I worked with kids came from what I saw with her. This is July 5, 1995. I have now retired from teaching, and on July 1st of 1995, I experienced what to me at this point is probably the biggest day of my life. I just finished experiencing the Southtown Singers reunion concert, which I arranged and organized with the idea that I would present these wonderful people to the community of Rochester so they could share the feelings that I've always had and a little bit about the great things that went on with these people all during my years at Mayo High School. At the reunion concert, there were, I imagine, close to 200 Southtown Singers that returned for it, plus an auditorium full of people at Mayo High School. It was so overwhelming to me that it's hard for me to even comprehend what this is all about. It was a wonderful, wonderful night. And then we finished with the Southtown Singers theme song, So What's New, which consisted of probably the most fun I have ever had in my life directing any song. It means so much. But then the ultimate of all things took place when Gary Olson, my principal, came forth with a plaque and read to this huge audience that all these people had requested that the auditorium at Mayo High School should acquire a name, and the name should be the Gerald D. Smith Auditorium. I can't comprehend this. I'm absolutely overwhelmed. So I have the tremendous honor of having an auditorium named after me. And I am so grateful and so thankful for all of this, just for the things that happened and the great tribute, which is way more than I could ever imagine, that all I can say is that the retirement situation, as far as I'm concerned, is grand and glorious. It's the greatest tribute I can think of. I'm retiring right on top of things. I feel my career as a teacher has been the only thing in the world I would have ever wanted to do. It has been the occupation that has been God-given, and I have been blessed with a career that to me has just been so rewarding I can't even talk about it. No way in the world do I consider myself a strong choral person. I've enjoyed the choirs. I've been teaching in a part of the country that is based on St. Olaf, Luther, and Concordia musicians. I haven't ever fallen into that category. I really have just done my style of teaching in a way that really has never come up to the same type of standards, whatever I want to say, dealing with the teachers around me in the other large schools, but I wouldn't have traded this for a thing. It's been my way, and I've been very happy with it. The numbers have remained huge and large, and the kids have been totally responsive to everything. It's just been a fantastic place to be. I've loved my time teaching. I'm very glad now to be through with the whole thing with just wonderful memories. I'm great on memories. I'm great on nostalgia. I will remember these things forever, and I guess that's about all I need to say at this point about my feelings about retirement.